This video is brought to you by my wonderful members and Super Chat sponsors. Click the join button to become a member. Hellhounds, omens of doom in the minds of most people. Could such things really exist, or are there no grains of truth among the legends? Listen to the following story, along with some interesting folklore I researched to supplement our discussion, and let me know what you think. Dear Mr. X, my name is Beth. I was recently watching a video you made about a woman who grew up in Nevada, the one with the woman in the yellow dress and the seemingly random dogman encounter. I have a story of my own that I wanted to share with you. This took place in late 2014 when I lived in the high desert of Southern California. The small town I called home was surrounded by abandoned mines, similar to that of the girl in your other video. Our property was pretty far out in the desert, at least 5 miles away from the closest town. All dirt roads, no street lights. You know the whole deal. My house was protected by my 3 guard dogs. One sweltering afternoon, my neighbors, Donna and Chad, came to my door with some strange questions. First, they asked if our dogs had been let out the night before. I had to be honest, so I told them that the dogs were indeed outside as usual. Knowing that my dogs were obviously good dogs and would never cause any trouble, my neighbors asked another question. They wanted to know if my car had any bite marks on it. I told them my car was fine the last time I saw it, that there was no damage as far as I had seen. Chad complained that there were large tooth marks around the wheel wells on his truck and wanted to know if it could have possibly been one of my dogs. The question sounded a bit weird at the outset, but I figured I'd look into it anyway. I followed them outside into their driveway. Chad showed me the front of his truck, and I was dumbfounded that he could ever imagine my dogs being responsible for what we were looking at. In fact, I wasn't entirely sure any domesticated dog could be large enough and powerful enough to do that much damage. I bent down to take a closer look at the truck. Chad began to get restless, more insistent that I come up with an explanation of some kind. I looked back at him, trying my best not to let him see how much of an idiot I thought he was. These weren't scratches or light dents you would expect from a dog biting a car. They were full-on, penetrating holes, gouged into the metal chassis. Just to make sure, I checked my dogs' mouths and teeth for breakage or cuts in their gums. Anything to suggest they may have bitten something hard like the wheel well of a truck. They were all fine. We never found out what exactly did cause the damage to Chad's car. We did have the occasional sighting of cougars or bears coming down from the mountains when prey was scarce, but I couldn't imagine why one would go berserk on a car like this. A year or so later, I was watching a show on TV that mentioned sightings of hellhounds in Palm Springs, about 20 miles away from where I lived. The time frame where the sightings allegedly occurred was around the same time my neighbor's car was attacked. There was a man being interviewed on the show who also mentioned finding huge bite marks in his car. It all just made me wonder if there was some connection between the abandoned mines and these possibly canine cryptids mentioned on the news. I also wonder if things would have been different for me if my dogs weren't out on patrol that night. Thanks for your time, Mr. X. Sincerely, Beth. Hey there, friends. Mr. X here. Now, I know that story was a bit short, so I want to give you a little bit more on this topic to think about. I did a little research and came across some fascinating ancient European legends surrounding these so-called devil dogs. From the town of Peterborough, England, during the early 12th century comes a tale you might be vaguely aware of. A commotion stirred shortly after the arrival of one Abbot Henry of Poitou. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Could be wrong. It is said that one Sunday, a multitude of people witnessed a supernatural event of some kind. A great number of huntsmen marauding through the woods. They were giant and hideous to behold, dressed in black, of towering stature, and riding large black horses and goats as their steeds. Running with these mysterious huntsmen were terrible hounds, jet black fur with glowing red eyes, as big as saucers. The beings sounded horns throughout the night, and their hounds howled a haunting tone that echoed through the forest. They were reportedly seen taking up residence in an area for almost 2 months, through the season of Lent and all the way to Easter. These strange events became known as the Wild Hunt. Allegedly, similar encounters and stories have been told throughout all parts of Europe. They seemed to be accompanied by bitter, freezing cold winds, cold enough to bring death to anyone caught outside upon their arrival. The legend of the Wild Hunt is often said to be the origin of the Hellhound myth. Perhaps these mysterious beings brought the terrible hounds to our plane of existence from somewhere beyond. The legend of Black Shuck, interestingly enough, is also associated with some Christian imagery and custom. A beast said to take the form of a hulking black dog that silently stalks the shadowy areas of the town with a howl that can make one's blood run cold. A story from the late 16th century in England describes a grisly scene. On one peaceful, quiet evening in the town of Bungay, one of those, not sure, folks were in church for their daily prayers and devotions. Unbeknownst to the parishioners, a dark storm was brewing. The serenity of their evening was shattered when, amidst a flash of lightning, the doors burst open, revealing the dark silhouette of a great hound. The beast entered the sacred chamber and murdered 2 people who were kneeling in prayer, before vanishing as suddenly as it appeared. It was said to have then traveled 12 miles away to another church in Blythburgh, I don't know, where it reportedly took 2 more lives for reasons unknown. This creature became known as Black Shuck. Witnesses described it as a giant hound with matted black fur. Many claimed it was extremely large, with some accounts insisting it was as big as a horse. The monster foamed at the mouth, as if rabid and deranged. Strangest of all, many claimed that the beast had gigantic, glowing red eyes. Seeing the creature became known as an omen of bad luck. Some believed it signified that one's death was imminent. Children were told to shut their eyes if they ever heard its howl, which was said to be easily mistaken for the sound of wind. Very interesting stuff. Super creepy to think that there's a dangerous animal that sounds like wind. So let's discuss. Regarding Beth's story, I have to say I've never happened to come across any instances of wild animals attacking cars in that way, biting holes in metal wheel well panels. That's pretty intense, though I must admit it's not entirely outside of the realm of mundane possibility. Beth drew an interesting connection between the appearance of these possible cryptids and the abandoned mines in the area. I want you to imagine for a moment. Might the workers have uncovered something strange that resulted in them having to shut down their mining operations in the town? What if they lost someone to a mysterious creature lurking deep underground? Obviously, this is all wild speculation, but you know how I like to have my fun here with these stories. Concerning the ancient legends of hellhounds out of England, I found it interesting that there was this supposedly dark and evil creature that was able to enter churches and prey on some of the most pious members of society. Really makes one wonder why that would be possible. An interesting parallel bridging the gap between these stories was the fact that Beth saw reports of a hellhound from a town 20 miles away. The English legends also happen to depict the hellhound traveling many miles to hunt different churchgoers. I took that as a very strange coincidence. So, I have a couple questions for you in the comments. What do you think happened to Chad's car? Are you aware of any kind of animal that can punch straight through a metal wheel well? How about what you think about the ancient stories of hellhounds? Was it really just folklore meant to keep people safe and out of the cold? Or was there some disturbing truth behind the legend? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. So now's the time where I will open up the floor to the dreamers for them to weigh in. Those listening live, that is. Remember, if you want a chance at your question or comment showing up in a future video, turn on notifications so you catch the live reading and discussion. Alright, so Tariko says, it's interesting to think how many canines are den animals, which could be the possible connection to the caves. Very interesting. Imagine the idea of a possibly, for lack of a better term, demonic entity, an ancient, pretty much borderline evil and horrifying creature, a hellhound, a hulking black dog, almost the size of a horse, taking up residence in the mine that you work at. Imagine that moving in. I could see why they would abandon it in that case. This story really made me wonder and want to look up and look into the history of this town and see what actually happened that led to the abandoning of these mines. Just a little interesting tidbit there, a part of the story. Sonny Gabe says, I remember these types of creatures loathe dogs. So if the trucks or cars had been previously marked by dogs, that could make an explanation. I'd actually never heard of that. The idea of hellhounds hating real dogs. I wonder why they would. Maybe they were dogs in another life, or maybe they were supposed to be dogs, but they drew the short straw and ended up being given the role of hellhounds. I don't know. Interesting. Sinister Potato says, isn't it supposed to mean something if you dream of a hellhound? That I don't know. I probably should. My name is Mr. X Dreams after all, but I would think if it's seen as an omen of something terrible going to happen in real life, I can't imagine it being much better in the dream realm if you were to see such a thing. I mean, honestly, there's all kinds of reasons why you might see different types of imagery in your dreams, and it doesn't always translate to a real world consequence, but I don't think I would be getting any warm and fuzzies from seeing a hellhound in my dreams. And I remember Brett also saying that he's often assisted in some way in his dreams by dark, shadowy, dog-like creatures. I wonder what those are. Brett also said, I used to see a Rottweiler-sized shadow hound walk back and forth outside my bedroom as a kid. You're going to have to elaborate on that for me, Brett, if you have a minute. I'd like to know more if there's a significant part of that story that we're missing. Skeets Grimseeker says, maybe the stories made them real. Tulpa? ? Again, this ever-present idea on this channel, the tulpa, a thought form, something dragged, possibly kicking and screaming, from the dream realm into our real world. This is a very fascinating subject to me. One day, I promise you guys, one day I'm going to talk in depth about it and do some research and bring you something really interesting to share. But with all the years and years of folklore and stories being told about these things, how couldn't it be a possibility? I would imagine it would be possible, if there is such a thing as a tulpa, to bring it through from one realm into the next, into this one, even if it's just that original realm is the realm of human thought. Dark Waters had something to say about this. Hellhounds are summoned. Also, they're associated with spirits of fallen giants, which are demonic. Fallen giants. I would love to have some insight as to the metamorphosis, rather, between a giant, which I would assume would be some sort of humanoid creature, to that of a hound. Super interesting. Thank you all for your contributions and for these fascinating seeds of discussion for this topic. I appreciate it very much. And with that, my friends, this story has come to an end. All I need to do now is get a nice code word from the dreamers listening live. So let's see what they come up with. So Mary C came up with the brilliant code word Doge, because after all, we're talking about some sort of mysterious canines here in this story. So if you're listening to this part of the story, type Doge in your comment down below. Be creative with it, surprise me, and that way I'll see who the real dreamers are. Take care, my friends. Later. All right. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, don't forget to like and share. If you made it to the very end, you're exactly the kind of subscriber I'm looking for. Don't forget to turn on those notifications. That way, you can catch the live show and discuss the stories with me. Your input might even appear in my next video. Last thing, if you heard a code word after the story, type it in a comment down below so I know who the real dreamers are. Take care, my friend. Until next time.